right, welcome to the show where we share the stories of the many who intersect with our healthcare system but are rarely heard from. My name is Kevin Poe, founder and editor of Kevin MD. Today in the show, we have Scott Abramson. He is a neurologist and he wrote the Kevin MD article, Where Does the Joy and Meaning in Medicine Dwell? Scott, welcome to the show.
Kevin, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
So we'll get into your article in a little bit, but first off, can you just share your story and journey to where you are today?
I was a neurologist at Kaiser Permanente in Northern California. I joined in 1979 and I retired in January 2020. And so that's 40 years. Actually, if you add it up, it's parts of 6 decades, 79 to 2020. So I retired in 2020. It was a great career. The first 20 years of that career, I did what everybody else did. I was like one of these find it, fix it, explain it doctors. And I was competent at what I did. I took care of my patients. I kept good notes. I had a lot of, I have OCD in my DNA. So I, could manage my clinic. And I thought I was doing a good job. I really did. And I didn't feel burnt out. It was tough, but I thought I was doing good. But about 20 years into my career, Kaiser offered this communication course for its doctors, teaching bedside manner, maybe you might say. And I took that course, and then I became one of the leaders in that mission. And that changed my life so much. It changed my approach to how I dealt with patients. And it gave me such an incredibly better connection with patients and a better connection with joy and meaning in my own practice. So that's my journey.
So what exactly did he teach you in this course that really changed your perspective on how you connected with patients?
Well, Kevin, the Kaiser model we called it a 4 habits model. And it's like a lot of other communication models we have. We call it 4 habits. It's the habit of establishing rapport quickly. It's getting patient perspective, making an empathic statement, and closing the visit. And in each one of those things, there's a lot of skills. For example, let me just give you one simple thing in, let's say, habit 1, we call establishing rapport. Now, this may not, I know, Kevin, you're a generalist, family medicine, but for those who have been consultants or hospital doctors or ER doctors, here's just a real simple thing about establishing rapport that can make all the difference. So, Kevin, if you were, let's say, in the emergency room and I were called down to see you as a neurologist, I might be saying something like, "Hello, Mr. Poe. I'm Dr. Abramson. I'm the neurologist, or I'm from the neurology department, or your doctor in the ER called me to see you. I'm your neurologist." That's what we would traditionally say. But if we just use one different word, it can turn the whole connection around. So what if I come in and I say, "Hello, Mr. Poe. I am your neurologist. I'm not just the neurologist who happened to come down here. I'm your neurologist." And there's so many things during this, in this communication course, in all of those different habits that we've learned that are just fantastic things that bring this connection to patients and bring greater joy and meaning into our lives as physicians.
Now, as you reflect on your long career as neurology, talk about some of the challenges the profession faced, some of the rewards that you faced, that you have time to reflect on your career. So tell me about some of the challenges and rewards of your long career in neurology.
I think the challenges are just like everybody else. It's a challenge of being, overwhelmed with so much to do and so little time to do it. And part of the thing is from our own, part of the problem and part of the challenge is from our own idea of who we are. So a lot of us, we were all we worked hard all our lives, to get into medical school and middle school and high school. We aced our PSAT, our SAT, our med boards, and, we did things right. We always did things right. I mean, we memorized the Krebs cycle, for God's sake. So now we're in a position where we just can't get everything right. We can't answer all those messages on time. We can't, maybe we should talk to a patient and call them back or maybe we get a call from a patient. Maybe we should work them in. Maybe we should see them, but we can't. And that just sort of chips away at our self-value of who we are. And I think the other thing is that most of us who go into this field, we see ourselves as compassionate people. My gosh, I'm so compassionate. I want to save the planet. I want to save people, help people. But we find that, a lot of times we just don't have that compassion. I remember right before I retired, I got a call from this family. Their loved one had Parkinson's, was not doing well. They just, please, can you see him, doctor? I couldn't see him, and I was feeling, and instead of feeling compassion, I was feeling angry. I'm saying, why are they calling me at 4:45 on a Friday? I'm sort of angry at them. I was angry at Kaiser. I was angry at myself for feeling angry at all this stuff, and frankly, I was feeling a little annoyed at God for creating all these people with defective basal ganglia. So I think that's the thing is we see that we don't live up to our measures of doing things right and doing it with compassion. It's a struggle. It was a struggle for me all those years.
So let's talk about your Kevin MD article that you wrote titled, "Where Does the Joy and Meaning in Medicine Dwell?" Now, for those who didn't get a chance to read the article, can you just walk my audience through it and share the story of why you decided to write it?
Yeah, sure thing, Kevin. And thank you for giving me the opportunity. Actually, the title of the article was "Where Does God Dwell?" That was really the title, "Where Does God Dwell?" And really, I think one of the things that this communication course taught me and what I learned in those last years of the last half of my practice was to take joy in the mundane, in the everyday stuff. So I'm seeing this lady, she's 86 years old. Her name is Eleanor, and she's come to me for what we call, little old lady dizziness. No one knows what it is. It's there, And so she's telling me her story, and she's 86 years old. Her husband died 9 months ago. She said they met at a roller skating ring when they were 19. He was the cutest guy in the roller skating ring. And for the next 67 years, they skated together. He was, they were friends, lovers, square dance partners, RV camping buddies, and all that. And so, I'm listening to her story, and she had a good cry and she had a good laugh. And I couldn't do anything about the dizziness. She left just as dizzy as she came in. But as I'm driving home that night, I'm thinking, wow, I really felt good about the encounter. I felt like I connected to someone. I felt like it was a real special moment just talking with her. And I remember when my kids were little, I used to come home late at night and miss soccer practice or dinner, and they'd say to me, Dad, how many lives did you save today? And when I thought to myself, if they would have asked me on that night, I would have said, you know what? Maybe I did save a life. But the life I saved was not Eleanor's, because on that day, in that encounter, I allowed joy and meaning to bless my own life. And so what does this have to do with where does God dwell? Well, there's a saying in the Jewish Bible. It's a rabbi, it's a little story. The rabbi asks his students, he says, where does God dwell? And one student says heaven. One student says, well, we're only humans. We can't know where God dwells. And the rabbi says, no. God dwells wherever we choose to let God in. And I think it's the same thing with joy and meaning in medicine. Where does it dwell? It dwells wherever we choose to let it in. And, I was so blessed, that on that day, in that encounter, I was able to allow joy and meaning into my own dwelling. But for many years, honestly, I would have just written this little old lady dizziness. Who can figure this out? Next patient.
Now, you talked about some of the issues facing medicine, about the pressures, the time pressures, and a lot of physicians I talk to, they're not able to see that joy and meaning in medicine. So talk about the lessons that you've learned from that encounter, and how can other physicians learn from this story? How can they find joy and meaning in everyday encounters?
And believe me, Kevin, this is something that I struggle with every day. that I was practicing. It wasn't like a flip a switch and all of a sudden, wow, everything is wonderful. But I would work at it.
Mm-hmm.
And on most days, a lot of days, we always say, oh my God, I didn't have any compassion. I don't have any compassion, and we write this off to compassion fatigue. Oh, wow, I give so much compassion to everybody. I just don't have anything left. It's all that. See, I don't believe that. I believe compassion fatigue is a myth. I believe that it's not that we've given too much of ourselves, too much. We just don't have anything left. We don't have it when we start out. And I can attest to that. I mean, on a lot of days, if you ask me what percent of your patients did you feel actual compassion with? I might maybe 5% on a good day. But there's one thing we can do, and it's a simple thing. And I knew the answer all along, and I bet all of your audience knows the answer. I'm sure you know the answer, but it's a simple thing. All it is just put yourself in their shoes. Put yourself in their shoes. So that guy that comes in and he's got this chronic back pain and he can't play catch with his son. Imagine yourself in that situation, not being able to play catch. A guy that's up all night with an itch or a rash or something. Imagine yourself what it's like. Imagine yourself what it's like, waiting on the other end of a telephone for the doctor to call you with a result, the anxiety that you have. If we can put ourselves in our patient's shoes, I think that's one step toward realizing the blessings that we have of being in the position we are.
We're talking to Scott Abramson. He's a neurologist. He wrote the Kevin MD article, Where Does the Joy and Meaning in Medicine Dwell? Scott, as you reflect on your career, anything that you would have done differently in medicine if you were to do this all over again?
I wish that I would have taken this communication mission, when I started out, because like I said, Kevin, for the first 20 years of my career, my approach, like so many other docs, was, what's the matter? What's hurting? Where does it hurt? Does it hurt on Tuesdays or Thursdays? What's going, what's the matter? Let me find it. Let me fix it. Let me explain it all to you. That was my approach. So what I learned from the communication training at Kaiser is it's not about, it is about what's the matter. We're doctors, we have to know that, but it's a balance. But it's not just what's the matter, it's what matters. What matters to patients? I can see someone with a tension headache, it's gone on for years. They don't need a whole explanation of what's the difference between tension, migraine, what about SSRIs, what about both? Maybe they just need, what are you most worried? Maybe just to ask, what are you most worried about? Well, doctor, is this a brain tumor? Could it be an aneurysm? Like, if that's what really worries them, and you can address that worry, then you've addressed what matters. And I just think that if I could have started out with that perspective, my dwelling would have been filled with a lot more joy and meaning for the first 20 years of my career.
My final question. What's your take-home message that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience?
I think that probably above all is the one message, is to concentrate not so much or balance it, not just what's the matter, but what matters. And when you can make that connection to people, it not only will bring them closer to you with more trust and more connection, they're going to be more compliant with your advice, have a better outcome, but you are going to experience more joy and meaning and connection with your patients in this profession that you've chosen.
Scott, thank you so much for sharing your story, time, and insight. And thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you, Kevin. I so much appreciate it.